Welcome. Fix my camera. Fix my hair. Fix my face. Let's fix the audio. Let's get what is the audio up to? 100%. You want higher? You want 180? Let's go. 180. Bam! It went all the way up in the red. Did I blow your eardrums out? Why? All right, let's go. We are doing an impromptu philosophy because I'm back. I'm back teaching philosophy. I'm super excited. And so let's take philosophy questions and go over various things, watch some videos, do whatever you guys want. What philosophy should we do? We could talk about all day today. Was talking with my chair and the other philosophy professor about AI, how to get around this with the students and teaching. I've kind of been thinking about AI in general. We could go over some of philosophy of mind stuff. We could do ethics, logic. What do you guys want? Make sure you like and subscribe. We got to get the subscribers up. It's just, I don't know if my YouTube channel is getting buried or what, but it's been just stuck. The one and the many. Do you Orthodox reject PSR? Understood by Pras. What's his? I mean, what's his view? Like a lot of things, I mean, we don't. Uh, we don't reject a lot of these things. We just don't think that uh they're like first principles or self-evident or they can stand on their own. You need But for example, something came up recently about which is kind of related to PSR. Uh the principle proportionality that an effect can't have more than its cause, and people were confused about this, and it's like, oh, we Orthodox would accept these things. It's just we don't think from an autonomous epistemology you can justify that. But like, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that people do that are, I mean, think about it. You could look at multiple religions and philosophies and be like, yeah, that's true. We believe that's true. We just don't believe somebody from their position could necessarily justify that. But good question. Yeah, I'd do a bundle. Write me. I'll give you a big discount. Oh, big one, bro. Physics? You want to do physics? We could do the bottom of my ankle's okay. Check this out. Dat, 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 dat. Problem is I have flat feet and I'm not walking correctly, and so the bottom of my arch. All right, we got in the science section right here. We have. Do I need to turn the camera up? Why does it look like it's smoky in the room? All right, this Mao's not supposed to be in here. This book on Mao, which is actually a pretty cool book. I need to get through it, but I ran out of room. We have got the Mathematic Principia, Galileo, Ptolemy, Copernicus, Kepler. This one's awesome. Geocentricity. This book is awesome. It's like $2,000. It's out of print. Like somebody looked up and they were like, "Do you know how much that book they're charging for that book?" This is awesome. We go through some of this, the history of mathematics. What do we got here? Archimedes, Euclid, Pascal, Fahrenheit. Which is science here. You guys don't want to do science. Lavoisier, atomic theory. Well, that's mathematics. Mathematics. Mechanics, waves, and optics. Mathematica Principia. And biology. Non-Euclidean geometry, relativity. This starts to go into history and politics, literature. All of this is theology. And most of this, other than Shakespeare here, I guess, these is philosophy. All right, what are we doing? I have more books elsewhere, but... Oh, Jeb. There you are. Let me look. I was away from the... This stream's sponsored by Mineragua. Mineragua. Sí. Naturalmente. All right, where did you put the... This stream is sponsored by Spanish. We'll be doing the whole philosophy. Wait, where is the... I don't even see what you're doing. Where you put it. Oh, can I refute? If you... Oh, it's a conditional. We learned about conditionals on Monday, didn't we? See. Yeah, I can refute anything. Oh, what is it? Well, with the question about the AI, we could go over a little bit some philosophy of mind about the various theories of materialism how this with behaviorism and logical behaviorism gave rise to functionalism, and then black, basically weak and strong versions of AI. And then what we did Monday with some of the guys from my courses, we reviewed and watched some of Hubert Dreyfus's critiques of, who's really good. We could go over John Searle's Chinese room argument. But somebody did send a super chat. Oh, that's interesting. What? Why would I ever accept premise one? If God exists and I know God exists. Doesn't that seem weird? That doesn't fall. I mean, plug in anything for that. Like, nobody would ever accept premise one. Jacob, $5. 10. Supporting argument for premise two. Yeah, I just don't. Can you explain to me, why would that fall? If God exists, then I would know God exists. That seems like a really weak premise. Also, there could be an equivocation on knowledge. Because St. Paul says all men do know God. Like, there are no atheists. But you can suppress that knowledge. Now, are there things that we know that exist that we could, through various other propositions, abandon? Or things that we could do to our things that we've known that I no longer know, but they're still true. I'm sure drugs could do that. But yeah, I don't see anybody in their right mind agreeing to premise one. There's nothing. I mean, what just a bold assertion. If God exists, then I would know he exists. Oh, that's a good question. Is there a way to, what if I opened up a X space? How do I've never actually streamed an X space. Do I just do it like this on the, like, let's say I make an X space. Call in your philosophy questions right now. 1-800 philosophical crisis. It's probably more than 1-800 philosophy. Let's see if we can do it. Isn't that how Jay? All right, wait. There was somebody else I was supposed to read their super chat. these are just bring your philosophy questions and conversations. We got no stag things people wanted to go over. We did have some inquiries possibly about philosophy of mind and AI and functionalism and stuff like that. Awesome, $10. The thing about the one of the many that initially stopped me is if 2 negates 1, then why doesn't 3 negate 1? Oh, I see. I agree it's probably not an intellectual problem. Well, I just put it in one, like, it's really dyad is difference, right? And so the first principle of not being one, being different is 2. So 3 itself doesn't have that, right? So if you just want to talk about something being different, you don't apply 3 because you go to 2. So it's either the same, it's one thing, or it's different. If it's different, the next thing is dyad. So triad does not have that principle of difference in it. Does that make sense? Good question. All right. Where am I? We could do Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Yeah, so then you have a fallacy of equivocation on. So there's different ways we can go to. It would mean kind of standard epistemological textbook, depths and knowledge. There's no reason why somebody would accept one. Nor is there any argument for it, really. It's just a bold, unjustified assertion. The other way is there's an equivocation on oh, well, I've never made the argument just in terms of causality that a cause has to be personal for an effect. The argument that I give is one of is an epistemic argument, obtaining, right? If you're a quote unquote rational agent that's looking for the necessary conditions for the possibility of knowledge, and God, through the argument of intentionalism, is a necessary condition, then it must be personal. Why? It's the only thing that, well, not maybe the only thing, but traditionally how God is conceived. If we're talking about, right, we're defining the, in terms of intentionality, philosophically, I mean, in terms of philosophy, what are we talking about? A transcendent, infinite being, uncreated, uncircumscribable, unknowable, right? If that's what we're talking about, and you're trying to, in the relation epistemically, obtain that, well, those are opposite categories. This is exactly what I've gone over in the philosophy of mind, why Descartes created a mind-body problem, is because he defined the mind and matter in opposite categories. Literally just the opposite. So you can't, they become incommensurate categories. So if you're to relate to or reason to, you have to have a mean proportion. I mean, there's lots of different arguments we could give why God needs to be personal, but personal. But that's one of them. Also, God's not personal, right? When we talk about intent, like an intention, there's an intention behind that is attributed to a person who has a mind, etc. It doesn't make sense to be like, well, look at that rock's intention. The strongest argument is that there is no proportion between an infinite, uncreated, uncircumscribed, transcendent, eternal being and the opposite category, us. Finite, created, contingent, blah, blah, blah. You literally have the... So you can't even put those into a sentence, let alone a causal. What's the mean proportion? Well, revelatory theism says that God is not a monad, he's a person. So, well, you're a person too. So you have a mean proportion between two unlike things. They share alike. Like, this is just standard kind of mathematics and philosophy. In order to relate two opposite categories that are incommensurate, you need a mean proportion. But between two opposite categories of the infinite and the finite and all the other ones, there is none. But the God's personal and we're personal, then we can relate, right? I can actually obtain the necessary conditions for the possibility of knowledge. But I think probably the strongest argument is my argument from accidentalism and intentionalism. If there is not a personal being behind the world, so what we want to do is explain all the stuff that we accept. So ultimately, what is the epistemic principle? Well, from the Christian view, there's a personal God who's revealed himself to be personal, that stands behind the universe, that sustains, that, right, gives an account for why there's identity, why we can know stuff. So there's a story behind that actually makes sense. It's like, yeah, if that's the case, if there's a God like that would... Well, there's only one other way to go. If there isn't a personal God who creates, he knows, just like you, if you create something, you know what you create, but sustains it, stands behind it, right? Holds it in existence, created it to be... Not only is he in the position to know, he's in a position to reveal, right? But there's intention behind the universe, or there isn't. Either there's a personal God or there isn't. So it's personal, it's intentionalism. The opposite category, and there's no third way any more than married and bachelor, pregnant or not pregnant. If I'm doing something with an intention, so whatever action, there's an intention behind it. If there's not, then it's an accident. So that's the strongest argument. If it isn't a personal God, it's accidentalism. Guess what? Now you have to explain everything in terms of that what ultimately stands behind the universe is not intention, but accident. So congratulations, you have to explain the accidental laws of physics. The laws of physics preclude accident. Then you have, if you don't believe it, that's what I mean, you're refuting yourself. If you don't believe that behind the universe there's intention, the only other category is accident. So you have to explain accidental knowledge. There's no accidental knowledge. The knowledge excludes accident. So every single thing, accidental morality, accidental necessity, accidental laws of physics, all those terms exclude accident, but that's your principle. The one thing they exclude is your principle by which you have to semantically explain this is what it means. So you're literally contradicting yourself. And that shows, and in your world of accidentalism, story, narrative, meaning, knowledge, all this stuff's not even possible. So it's, and there's only two ways, so therefore God's exists and he's personal. That's the. Okay, let's do some super chats. And nobody's been able to get out of that argument. Nobody. And it's so easy to actually understand it. Jonathan Brighton, $5. I bring you up to my wife as often. Well, thank you for the opportunity to say your full title. Father Deacon Doctor. Father Doctor. Yeah, good point, Jeb. All right. Next. Should we do... We could do epistemology. I don't know why people have a hard time with that. Why couldn't there be accidental knowledge? It's like... This makes me think that... What do you think philosophy is supposed to do? Remember above... Remember when we were back in ancient Greece? And... in the temple of Delphi, know thyself. Nos que se. There's something about philosophy that is supposed to be introspective. You slow things down, you think about them, you go. And it's, I was talking with the other philosophy fellow. This is really what we're, especially for, by the time we get you upperclassmen, like they're cool. Like I'll be teaching upperclassmen with epistemology. They're not the ones I'm worried about. It's the freshmen and sophomores, the underclassmen coming in, and they don't introspect. Is the examined life worth living? They haven't even heard of that question. But that's what I want people. It should be like just slow it down and think about why couldn't there be accidental knowledge? Love going to I love going to, well, I just blanked on what I was going to say. Mathematics. So think about this. Student doesn't know, hasn't studied. And their math. So they guess on all the answers. And let's say they get some of those answers right through guessing. So they have a true belief. But they got that accidentally, right? It was a coincidence. It was a lucky guess. It's accident. Would you say, well, they know it? As long as it just magically comes out accidentally, the right answer, that's all we need to have for not, like, nobody would ever say that. It's why math teachers say, show your work. They want to determine if you know the math. What if you're cheating? What if you're copying? But no, you have to know the reasons why in order to know the conclusion. So obviously, knowledge precludes accident. You get a true belief in the right way, not accidentally. So yeah, good luck. So if K implies not A, not accident, and I'm asking you to explain accident, you're going to use not A to actually explain K. So you're actually affirming A and not A at the same time. If you want to do logic, like how you're not going to be able to do that. Same with laws of nature, which is another good lecture that we can do. What is a law of nature? And you'll see physics and science precludes accidental. Think about it even in the legal sphere as well. Well, it's an accidental law. You know what it's like? Let's see if we get this. I know I'll probably get dinged for this. Showing South Park. Here we go. It's a perfect example. All right, let's do share. Window capture. Ready? So talk about accidental. Here's your world of accidentals. All law, insurance law, this is how it would work. And this is
No, excuse me. I don't understand. How can this stupid thing be worth $90 trillion?
What, you think it's worth more?
No, dude, that doesn't make sense.
Well, you don't get $90 trillion, but the chart says that's what it's worth.
Uh-oh, problem again!
What is it now? Another insurance company's about to go under. If they do, people could lose millions.
Okay, no problem. We better consult the chart. Sirs, another insurance company is going under.
Now determining most prudent move for insurance company. Bailout! The most prudent move is a bailout. Bail out the insurance company.
accidental law. There you go. I like that. That was a good illustration of. Yeah, philosophy mind's a really interesting. Oh, hold on, I gotta get to the super chats, but remind me to get. Am I squinting my eyes again? Oh, I'm blind. Oh, my eyes are closed. Starting point of oneness of God versus three distinction of God has been frustrating to articulate. Well, one, pun intended, one way, actually, deriving, well, think about it. You just got to think about it in terms of presupposition. So it is a Greek metaphysical presupposition. I mean, how do they know this? How are you going to justify that the good, is perfect and multiplicity is not? It's a falling away from perfection. Therefore, God has to be first and foremost one and can't be multiple. And again, this gets back to one of your early questions, the one and the many. Well, how do you know that? Like, who? There's a whole bunch of, and that's what you're going to see in philosophy. There's just a whole bunch of us justified presuppositions that are just kind of made up. Now, sometimes it can give a better story about it than others, but ultimately you can boil it down to that's unjustified assumption that one is perfect and multiplicity is deficient and a movement away from perfection. Okay. So one of the things that they're using autonomous reason to conclude that one is perfect, God must be one, etc. Now, I show that autonomous reason is actually ends up in contradiction. Why? Because autonomous reason, I mean, first of all, it's assuming a whole bunch of unjustified, that knowledge is possible before they can justify that knowledge is possible, or any of these kind of principles. But the fact of the matter is that suppose someone's even a theist. I believe in God. But I'm engaged in natural theology or autonomous epistemology. Well, what does that mean? What autonomous epistemology? That it's possible God doesn't exist and I'd have to prove them, right? Rather than presupposing it as a necessary conditions for the possibility of knowledge. Okay. Once I show that accidentalism, the opposite category of intentionalism, God, and revelatory theism, is self-refuting, that it's false, then we know that God and revelatory theism must be the necessary condition for the possibility of knowledge. Now, let's go back and plug that in. What does that say about autonomous epistemology? The position that says that the necessary condition for the possibility of knowledge is not necessary, but only possible. So you just contradicted yourself. So it ends up in contradiction. So it's not about how do I philosophically derive, is God one or three? Because you're back into the contradiction again of autonomous epistemology. You can't. That's why Russ Mannion says there is no purely rational argument for theism. There's only a theistic account of rationality. And the theistic account is not figure it out like, just assume a bunch of unjustified assumptions and build your own buffet. Build your own salad, mate. It says God is the Lord who's revealed himself. He's revealed, it's revelatory theism. And I don't mean that people always get this confused in a private sense, because obviously that's, if it's a private revelation, none of us have any objective means of actually verifying that. We can verify. We can look and be like, in history, God revealed himself. These people believe this, right? They believe the same thing. Like, you can look, right? So it becomes publicly, objective and public. It's something actually in history, not made up in somebody's mind or something, and just claimed, well, I claim revelatory theism in my own mind. Like, obviously, come on, dude. Who are you kidding? You have to understand that God revealed himself as Trinity. It's revelatory theism. Now, I can give arguments like I did with the person, that God must be personal. Why? By impossibility of the contrary. Because if he wasn't, there wouldn't be any mean proportion between the two opposite categories. So I wouldn't be able to relate them. It would imply accidentalism, self-defeat, etc., etc. If it's personal, the term person and personhood implies relation to the other. And we talked about this when I was going over Dr. David Bradshaw's paper on Boethius and personhood. Even the word existere related to personhood to stand out from one, like one's person, even the meaning refers to another person. There's no monad person, in other words. So God must be personal. We already argued that. Must, therefore, the person relates eternally to another person. But if it's just dyad, if it's just two, right, then two's not one. So I know somebody'd asked, but like, well, neither is three. But yeah, three isn't literally. Three is not the principle of difference. Two is dyad. It's right. Three's more than that. Ooh. Man, you guys have so much good stuff. Anyway, so it has to be triad. We've gone over all this. So personhood implies the triad, so three. So there are other arguments too. But the main thing is, by the way, yeah, I squint because later at night my eyes get tired and I'm losing my vision. All right. Let's see if you have other. I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. That's the most important. Super chats get priority. And what is wrong with these glasses? Okay, so that was postcard 011. Thank you so much. Jonathan Brighton, nose tag. Qualified that. My argument wasn't, yeah, that the cause of the universe, per se, just talking about cause and effect, has to be personal. Although I did make an argument that, well, it has to be intentional. The cause has to be intentional, and intentionality applies. So, answered that. $5 from this tag. Is this a debate panel? No, it wasn't a debate. I just wanted you to bring in questions and topics to go over, which a lot of you have. We're going to be learning, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to be learning philosophy through South Park. I actually teach that in the classes. Let's go. What's dark mode? Father, you should try gouging out your eyes, then you won't have to worry about. Father, have you tried homelessness? You might not be worried about your eyes if you're homeless. Remember that? Grabs McGee, $9.99. What are the prereqs for becoming a deacon? That's a good question. Not strictly philosophical, but the standard, I mean, there can always be exceptions in rare cases. Okay. A bachelor's. Seminary, usually an MDiv, although you can do like other programs. Sometimes, like the Antiochian House of Studies, there's various diaconal programs. But seminary, you have to have seminary training after a bachelor's. A recommendation from your priest that you are a a person of good moral standing that would make a good servant as a deacon. And then obviously your bishop has to be sign off, even to send you to seminary. To go to seminary, you have to be Orthodox for at least 3 years. If you are married, the prerequisite is your wife. I still have they're like ecclesial legal. She actually signed, I'm cool with this, because you're one. You're making a decision together that involves her. If you don't have a wife and you're ordained, then you are whatever you are. You'll be that way permanently. When you're ordained, if you're married, you'll always be married. God forbid your spouse dies, you're not allowed to remarry. Those are typically the credentials for the diaconate. All right, somebody says, I'm participating in, Zane does, in my debate in my University Philosophy Club, and I have to say the debate topic. What topic? Oh, here's a good one. I think the ethics stuff. Maybe something like his consequentialist, i.e., utilitarian ethics, the best ethical system. I say that because it's the most popular in medical field, in business, in government. That might be a fun one to actually do. Yes, unlisted logos, that's a good way to put it. Because when you think about what numbers mean, 1 and 2 are in tension with them. 1 literally says not many, and 2 is the first principle that says not one, but different. 3 doesn't say that. 3 doesn't say not different. I'm speaking, and it doesn't say opposed to 1. Does that make sense? So it resolves the tension. Keegan 2974. I like philosophy. If I can't understand anything philosophers write about. I want to show you something. Make sure that I protect the privacy of students. So I need to pop this up and make sure you guys don't see this, but I want to share. Don't think you'll be able to see. So this is one of the classes I'm teaching tomorrow. Online philosophy dictionary. Look how cool. One of the things is the niche in the language. So I said, half of the difficulty, is you're just unfamiliar with certain words. Do you know what abduction means? Let's go to, let's pick an R word. Ratiocination. That's awesome. Ratio? Raza? Rasa? Well, of course, ratio est mentis motio e quae disjunter distingui I can't get my glasses out. Distinguendi et connectendi potens. The mind's let's see if I can translate this. Remember my last. Reason is the mind's motio, but it's not in. Is in the movement. Reason is in the movement of the mind's quae. Man, my Latin's so bad. Distinguishing and connecting things that are potentially learned, that which are learned. Yeah, my Latin's bad. Sorry. All right, we're not supposed to do Latin in here. I don't practice it. I don't. All right. Recursion. That's based. Heard me talk about that. You can look that up. Recursiveness, recursion proof. Oh, here's a good one. Redenigration. So that's, the hard thing. You're going to see these words just thrown out like that. You need to get a philosophy dictionary like this. This is just one I just put up. It's ditext.com/runes/r.html. Here is reductio ad absurdum. Relative. Ooh, rigorism. All right, what other? And of course, it has, people's names and philosophers. Let's do, what about an L word? I'll take L for 500. Might just be a lot of names of people. I'm trying to think. Lemma. Is this cool? Holy smokes, dude. Hypothetical syllogism. Look how long this goes on for. Oh, Lutheranism. Limitum naturale. Natural light. Is that what you're saying? No, I need dark light. What did you say? What was it that you said? All right, let's go back. Good question. Jonathan Kelly, $10. Given the subjective experience, how can one ever be certain of discernment and not just deluding ourselves? Well, you would have to look at elements outside of yourself, correct? So think about it like if we made an analogy. If I was locked in my room speculating about the world, and you're asked like, well, how do you know you got like stuff right? Wouldn't you have to go outside of the room and actually start looking at the facts and collecting? So the good thing is you're not completely locked in your subjectivity. You're encountering an objective world. Your subjectivity, your experience makes it difficult, but not impossible to overcome. Why? Because God designed you that way, first of all, to be able to transcend the limitations of your subjectivity. Think about this. I always encourage students to think like a philosophical detective. One way that, in terms of detective work, how do I know it's just not just my experience of this? And one thing you do, guess what, is start interviewing people. Like, oh, they're all reporting there was a man, it was a man, not a woman, that committed this particular crime. Now, notice I'm starting to transcend the limitations of my subjectivity. There's things like that you can do, and that's one reason we use consensus paternum. Also, one way to get out of my subjectivity, beyond my I can never get out of it. Get around some of the limitations is some of the information you're getting is established through people who are wiser than you. This is why, in principle, we still have a university. And I mean, think about if you had all the information, I'm not saying knowledge, information on a computer, and there's no instructors, there's no mentors, do you think that they would actually get to know stuff? What's the learning curve on that? How would they know? Well, no, you put them in the care of people, even though they're fallible, who ideally are more educated and know stuff, right? That actually, even though there are instances of failure, the overall success rate of that, it's like, yeah, actually it works. The overall net profit of that. So these are all kinds of ways. That's how I check I'm not deleting myself. There's people I trust that are better than me on certain. One of the things is to question yourself. How do I know I'm not deluded? Like, so you're already asking the right sort of question. And I get feedback. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've asked, my wife and other people, am I crazy for thinking this? It just came up the other day. What? Oh, I remember. In a very similar way, there was somebody on Telegram that I perceived, so my subjective experience, was being a little bit salty and rude and condescending. Now, it was a topic that I had invested interest in. Maybe too much. Maybe I'm sensitive. is what I tell myself. So I'm already starting to doubt myself. Maybe I'm getting all hot and bothered, and there's nothing with this dude. It's just me. Problem's me and not them. Because I'm just oversensitive about this particular issue, because I'm really passionate about this issue, and it's being challenged and questioned. Okay? I'm totally stuck in my subjective experience. Now, how do I get out of that? I use AI. I use my AI overlord. That's how I'm like, is this person being salty? No, and have it analyze. No, I use real human beings who are in that channel. And I asked, I'm like, did it seem weird? I mean, did it seem rude? Or, and I did just use one, I used multiple people from kind of different backgrounds, and they're all like, no, it came off. I'm like, all right. So, we could all be wrong about that too, but do you see I'm starting to get out of my subjective possible delusion by getting what? More information. Now they're actually objective. They're outside of me, right? They're on their own subjects and stuff like that, but it's like a detective. When they're interviewing, right, or they're looking, what do they call that in law? Where it's like, let's say you have like there's 100, this is 100 coincidences that this happened. Like, what's that called, sweetheart, in law, where it's like doctrine of chances? Yes. My wife, the lawyer. Former lawyer. Do you see what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, okay, what are the odds that it's the doctrine of chances? So that's a good question. All right. Wow. We got 44 people, man. Wednesday night's a good. So thank you, Jonathan. Hopefully I asked that. I have a question about tag. Why doesn't tag work for Oriental Orthodox, but for Eastern Orthodox? I know tag can't work. Well, part of tag is what's revealed. So and I think this is the problem. That's why I said there's no purely rational argument for orthodoxy. There's only an orthodox account of rationality. Now, orthodoxy, they can't both be true. Do you see? So, tag's always referring to the Catholicity. It's not an argument that, like, you just build in your head a priori. Like, whoa, I just have this, and I mean, I guess Orientals can. Orthodox call Orientals heretics. So it either doesn't work for Orthodox, right? And it only works for Orientals, or it doesn't work. It does work for Orthodox and not for Orientals. Do you see? Because each system negates the other one. And the argument is that there is actually a church. There's an actual whole revelation. And so part of that is that obviously you can't have things that are false dogmatically in there. So you'd have to go into, like, yeah, if it's claiming to, if tag is claiming that there's a revealed religion that as a whole dogmatically is true, and we can see that Orientals are false, then it can't work for Oriental Orthodoxy. That's why. Also, I would say there is no consensus on the energies doctrine. Some people, right? But that's an essential ingredient, right? That would make knowledge possible. So it's just like, there's no actual authoritative teaching, it's like I guess you could reject it, or that's another problem. I mean, the list can go on, but like obviously tag can only work. Tag can't work for something, for a religion that can't claims Catholicity if it's wrong about dogmatic stuff. That's why. And it can't work for both Orthodox and Orientals when Orthodoxy say that Orientals are wrong. And Oriental, do you see what I mean? So that you have to think about it holistically like that. Also, it's not an a priori argument where you just like, well, but I added all the ingredients in a priori. It's like part of that is history, right? Like it's about the councils and like historically verifiable. Oh man, this is so good. This Mexican water. Oh, where is it bottled? I don't know what is it. Philosophy of. What are the odds? Right, hold on. Just says made in Mexico, but then distributed in El Paso. I think we should apply some presuppositionalism to that. All right. What other questions do we have? We haven't even got into our topic yet. We're just taking questions. That's fine. I don't care. Let me see if we have other. Eric Vigilant, $4.99. Thank you. Hello, Father Deacon. I recently became an Orthodox catechumen. God bless you. Thank you. I was watching your prayer videos before I attended my first one. Oh wow, that I love doing those prayers for you. It helps, not only like myself to pray with you guys. It's good to see the blessings that those prayers bestow upon you as well. So thank you so much. All right. We have got Yeah, hey, good, Rusty. Good way to put that. This is great. We're doing philosophy here. Polishing up our language. I really like the way that you say that. Tag is a paradigm argument. Yeah. You can't have two contradictory paradigms. Be right, one must stand and explain everything. Good. Excellently put. You said it well, better than I could. Here's a philosopher writing me right now, Orthodox. I should have him come on. All right. Should we? What do you guys want to do? Do you want to try the X space? Let's just try it. Call in. I think this is how you do it. And then I'll hold up. Unmute. Unmute. Let's do it. We need some experimenting. Holy smokes, man. I got so many. Notifications? All right. Let me figure this out. I'm gonna do it on my phone. Okay. Spaces. Philosophy space. Space. Search for spaces. No, I want to make one. Okay. Got it. I can type. This thing's so small. Okay, watch this. Let me do this. Oh, wow, look at everybody coming in. Why does it have music? Crazy. All right, I'll get it. 1 second. Oh, here I am. Here I am. Copy, link. And then I throw it in here. How's that? The unmute fallacy. Wait. I remember my joke. I thought ginger chews don't have souls. I wasn't gonna do a debate, but I thought it was just questions, but I'm sure people want to probably debate. All right. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Willow? My camera? Shaking? Oh, no, I don't know what to do. All right, welcome everybody to my first X space. Welcome to space. So you can let's see, we have 52 people in the viewers. You see the space there, link. Okay. Let's see if this I want to see JM's request. So let's see if this works. Add as speaker. All right. Unmute.
Awesome, Father Deacon. This is great.
So, can you guys hear that? All right, let's just test this. Is this how you do it? I mean, I can't think of another.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
The other way, you know what? If I do it through the computer. I'm gonna try this. All right.
All right. All right. All right. All right.
Hello,
Hello.
hello,
Hello.
hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Is there anybody out there? So if I do it through this, I'm getting feedback. Space. All right, I gotta switch it back to. Let's see. And I got two of these going on. Hold on, I'm gonna figure it out. All right. Hello?
It's a little bit better. There's still a little bit of an echo, though.
So this stinks. So I can't do it through the computer because I get feedback.
This might be why Jay does it on his phone.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Anyways, we got you on my phone. All right. I'm gonna put my phone in literally in my mic. With my phone and my microphone. How about that? You like that? All right. Let's go. Can everybody in the YouTube hear okay?
I can hear you. It's still a little bit echoey, though.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna fix that. It's recursive. It's not echo. It's called recursion. All right. Go ahead and we'll have to do our best. Unmute and then ask a question, and we'll just. All right, unmute and ask a question. We'll see how it works.
That's way better. You're not echoing.
Okay. Just go underwater and. All right, yeah. What's up, man? Welcome.
Good.
Sorry, somebody was calling in.
But yeah, gave you that argument, that Stone's argument in Superchat earlier because yesterday I was talking to some atheists and I guess that's supposedly from Alex Malpass or something. Conceded that it was valid, but I didn't concede on the matter or the content of it.
Yeah, it's not sound.
God's existence is dependent upon my doxastic state. So, like, when I challenged premise one, like, they were just saying that it wasn't, it just kind of exploded from there. So I just wanted your input on it.
Yeah, it's weird that to think that. Well, you know what? It's weird and it's not weird. It's to be expected that we've heard that kind of objection before. If God's real, then why doesn't he make himself known? This is kind of like divine hiddenness. So he's probably playing off of that. And so I think there, first of all, it's just weird. It's sort of like Richard Dawkins. If God's real, then he needs to come down here and answer me and do this and this. Why children have cancer? That's why I always joke. If science real, it needs to build a quantum seafoam time machine to go back into time and kill my grandfather or something. Like, and if it doesn't do it right now, then... So it's almost kind of a fallacy of incredulity. Well, if God's real, then he should be able to make it me known. And I should... Well, like, over your free will, or like... why would it be wrong that God would want you... Suppose you don't know God noetically in your heart, like we would say. Why is it God's obligation that he has to immediately make known to you? What if there's virtue in actually discovering and finding God? And I think part of that, interesting enough, is, virtue epistemology. The whole purpose, I think this is what they're not getting. The whole purpose is not how many facts can we get in our hand. Can we factually prove God's existence so we have another fact? It's to acquire the virtues and become like God, correct? So if you're just given something, hey, here I am, like, well, that's not what God wants you to be like. He wants you to be able to discover who he is. So it's a difference between knowing about God and knowing God. He wants you to know him, right? I would probably throw that in there too, but it's just strange. Like, well, where would you get this idea that if he's God, I'd have to immediately know him? By the way, Pascal had something to say about that too. You would. It would be the most obvious thing, but you fill your mind and life with distractions, which is kind of what St. Paul's saying, right? All know God, but they suppress the knowledge. So the problem's on the God side. It's on our side that we build systems, and through vices and stuff, we can quiet that knowledge.
Yeah, that's the approach I was trying to take with my questions towards him, is that it sounds like he's equivocating between knowledge at a noetic level, which I think we're born with, and then knowledge at an intellectual level, like a belief, like a cognitive state of, oh, I don't believe,
Yep.
or I don't believe God. So, yeah, maybe they're equivocating on knowledge.
Yeah,
As
that's the
every
other one.
Christian
That's the other one
that
too.
I know would say that we believe God, like by default. Maybe a Calvinist would say, with total depravity, but like our default state is that we know God exists in our heart,
Hold
and
on.
then we suppress it over years of vice or intellectual habits. And so that's what I was trying to say, is that, well,
Yeah.
why is God being reduced to a sort of cognitive state? Like, that seems wrong. That's not the Christian position. So your critique of Christianity fails because you're basically strawmanning that God's existence is a mental state.
Yeah.
That's not our position.
Hold on a second. I have an idea. Hey. Do you have the... Did you ever plug for this? One of these? So here is logic in action. I'm going to actually see if I can put this the phone on a speaker and get more volume. How about that? Oh, is that what somebody just said? You can probably put Bluetooth on the phone. Well, Thomas, pretty close right there. I'm going to do it on this so I don't get... All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
Oh man, it is dead. Let's do this. Yeah, exactly, Thomas. I think the problem is it was totally dead. Let's see if we can get it back going. Come on. There it is. Connection unsuccessful. What are you talking about?
Battery 90%. Connected to iPad 2 and iPhone.
All right, talk.
This is Jim's test.
Shoot.
Ready to pair another device. iPhone. Disconnected. iPad 2. Disconnected.
All right, let's do...
Connected to iPhone.
Hello?
Hello.
Why is it says it's connected and it's not coming through the speaker? Okay, it works for the music. Let's see why it's not working. Why is Twitter not connecting to
I
the...
can still hear you.
Yeah, we're just on my phone. It's not... All right, Lord, if you favor me, give me the answer, because that's all that God wants, is just to have another doxaxic belief in our head. So this is weird. If I'm in the car, it hooks up to the Bluetooth and it works. But this, it doesn't. Any clues, people in the chat? Oh, it's really weird. Could do. What if I do? Hello? Oh, it's really weird. I got it to work. Could do. What if I do? I think I figured this out. I'm going through YouTube on my phone. Here's how you do. Hello? Oh, it's really weird. I got it to work. Could do. What if I do? I think I figured this out. I'm going through YouTube on my phone. Here's how you do. Hello? It's not gonna work because it got a delay. I'll have to like slow down my... Hello? Doesn't make sense. Why doesn't Twitter go through... All right, we tried our best. We're just going to have to do it like... Bummer, man. I thought that was like... I thought we had it.
I'm not sure how Jay has it set up exactly, but it's like he's got his camera and microphone, and then he has the phone pretty close to the microphone to where you can hear the Twitter space.
Yeah, I'm resting it on the microphone right now. What I haven't checked is 1 second.
Battery 90%. Battery 90%.
Shut it off. Shut her down. What I haven't checked is to see what it sounds like from the YouTube when you're talking. Just from this.
Let me know if you want me to keep talking.
Just from this.
Let me know if you want me to keep talking.
How's that? Yeah, say something.
Hello, this is a test
Just from this.
on Deacon's Twitter space on philosophy. Let me thank you for joining. Keep talking. We're here to talk about philosophy.
How's that? Yeah, say something.
Hello, this is a test
Just from this.
on Deacon's Twitter
Oh, it's
space
not that bad.
on philosophy. Let me thank
That's not bad at all. All right, other questions that you had, Jib? We've got how many people? How's that? We've got Vane requesting, and then Maxi Payne. Just from this.
on Deacon's Twitter
Oh, it's not
space
that bad.
on philosophy. Let me thank
That's not bad at all. Jib, did you want to add anything else? Or I think those were good points and good questions. All right, other questions that you had, Jib? We've got how many people? How's
What's
that?
your advice
We've got
on-
Vane requesting, and then Maxi
Hello,
Payne.
this is a
Just
test
from this.
on Deacon's Twitter
Oh, it's not
space
that bad.
on philosophy.
That's not bad at all. Jib, did you want to add anything else? Or I think those were good points and good questions. All right, other questions that you had, Jib? We've got how many people? How's
What's
that?
your advice
We've got
on
Vane
psychological
requesting, and then
psychological
Maxi
stuff?
Payne.
This is a
Just
test
from this.
on Deacon's Twitter
Oh, it's not
space
that bad.
on philosophy.
That's not bad at all. Jib, did you want to add anything else? Or I think those were good points and good questions. All right, other questions that you had, Jib? We've got how many people?
Yeah, it's hard.
What's your advice?
We've got Vane requesting, and
The
then
rhetoric. What did you come up with in
Maxi
class the other
Payne.
day when you said I've got to use?
Oh, it's not that bad. That's not bad at all. Jib, did you want to add anything else? Or I think those were good points and good questions. All right, other questions that you had,
It's almost
Jib?
like when you think
We've
about
got how many
a lot of
people?
part,
What's your
part of
advice?
that's
We've got
developing,
Vane
having
requesting,
conversations.
and then
What did you come up with in
Maxi
class?
Payne.
I wish it was said I've got
better.
to use.
Oh, it's not that bad.
And
That's
it
not bad at all.
becomes
Jib, did you want to add anything else? Or I think those were good points.
come
and
back
good
with it.
questions. All right, other
Next time I'm gonna-
questions that you had,
It's almost
Jib?
like when you think
We've
about
got
kind of
how many
learning.
a lot of
That's
people?
part
What's your
part of
advice?
that
Language.
Vane. I'll have to look
Yes,
luckily
having
some
conversations
recorded class
where
where
you
you
come
come
up
up
with
with
a
class
class
something that
where
was
you
like
like
better.
And I
or
thought
something
it
that might have been you. And
That's
it
not bad at all.
becomes
Jib, did you want to add anything else? Or I think those were good points.
come
and
back
good
with it.
questions. All right, other
Next time I'm-
questions.
Yeah, you start to
that
learn.
you had,
It's almost
Jib?
like when you think
We've
about
got
kind of
how many
learning.
a lot of
That's
people?
part
What's your
part of
advice?
that
We've got
language. That's
Vane.
I'll have to look
Yes,
luckily
having
some
conversations.
recorded class.
I mean, there's
where you
ways
come
to like
back
kind of
with
post
something
fun
that
and
was
use,
like
and that's
better.
and I
Or
thought
something
it
that
might have been you.
and
Just
it
becomes
becomes by their own
Jib, did
thing.
you want to add anything
Like with
else?
scriptures,
Or I think those were good points.
comeback.
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's
What's your
part of
advice?
that language.
Well,
Having conversation.
Mine really
There's
is
ways
semantic
like kind of
process.
poke fun and use, and
that's
and I
oh,
thought
something
it might have been you.
Probably just
and
just
kind of
by
their own.
Jib,
story.
you want to adding
And I
something?
think comeback.
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
Mine really is
ways like
only I can
poke
fun
fun
and use,
and
that's
and I
oh,
thought
something
it might have been you.
Probably just
and it's kind of by their own.
Jib, you want to adding
And I
something?
think comeback.
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
Mine really is ways like only I can fun and use, and I thought it might have been you. Probably just
kind of by their own.
Jib, you want to adding
And I
something?
think comeback.
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
Mine really is ways like only I can fun and use, and I thought it might have been you. Probably just
kind of by their own.
Jib, you want to adding
And I
something?
think
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
mine really is ways like only I can fun and use, and I thought it might have been you. Probably just
kind of by their own.
Jib, you want to adding
And I
something?
think
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
mine really is ways like only I can fun and use, and I thought it might have been you. Probably just
kind of by their own.
Jib, you want to adding
And I
something?
think
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
mine really is ways like only I can fun and use, and I thought it might have been you. Probably just
kind of by their own.
Jib, you want to adding
And I
something?
think
All right, other
Yeah, you
questions?
start to learn. It's almost like when you're kind of learning a lot of
What's your advice?
language.
Well,
Having conversation.
mine really is ways like only I can fun and use, and I thought it better. Forgive me, I forgot to shut the other YouTube that I was testing. I just muted on my speaker here. I had it running, that's why you're getting double. All right, the sound's good. And you're back. Holy smokes, the fallacy of sound. I just don't know about all the fallacy of sound right there. Yeah, but I mean, just that takes, time on your own, just kind of thinking about how would I actually cut through all the BS and just state what's really going. Now, people accuse that. Somebody might accuse that of straw manning. But I don't think it's straw manning, because if it's actually dumb and stupid and the purpose is to actually reduce it to the stupidity that it is, I don't think that's really a straw man. It's like, that's just good rhetoric. So like one that I developed a long time ago, hey, just grant me all my unjustified positions so that I can make my case against you. That's what every position basically. I know I can't justify that, but if you grant me all my unjustified positions on that, and that's kind of what's going on with premise one. Well, I need you to, CJab, I need you to grant me premise one so that I can actually refute you. But like, now why do you think, do I look that dumb? Did this face look... I know what you're doing, and not on my watch. I'm not going to grant you all your unjustified, premises and presuppositions so that you can refute my position. Why would I do that?
to get better at understanding virtue epistemology
Yeah.
in its relationship to dialectic or debate itself, so that like I can draw the question back to kind of the metaphysics of debate itself, because the atheist wants to present all these arguments for their position, you know, the rare case that they actually present arguments. But doesn't debate itself have some sort of personal responsibility, some sort of ought
Yeah.
baked into it in its very nature?
And remember,
So what's
I was talking on Monday night about Russ Mannion, and Russ Mannion was really good getting to the question behind the question, the kind of psychology of, and I think there was something in there that I had to remember. I'll have to go back to the recording that we did, but there was something about, we went over so much stuff. Everybody in the YouTube and on the, we had like a 3-hour and 45-minute office hour tutoring session, and we covered a lot of stuff. But there was something about like, I can't remember it now. Do you remember that part where I asked about, like, it was getting the question behind the question? Why would you ask, like, why are you... Oh, I remember. Drink. Every time I remember something, everybody has to drink. This is water. I'm in the fast. I'm on the... That's why I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm drinking water. Fizzy drink. Okay. God, I just lost it. It was, oh, shoot. I got so excited I lost it. Oh. I can't believe I lost it. That's so stupid.
story of my life?
It was... was asking your opponent a certain question. That really stinks. I should have just said it right when I got so excited I lost. Alright, it was about...
I didn't know if there was an actual soundboard for
Watch if it happens the second time it comes. Okay, it was asking... I'm so upset. Can you believe it? I'm not going to go through 3 hours and 45 minutes on a video recording to find...
I could probably go back through the recording and try to find it later.
But gosh, it's my ADD brain too. That's the problem. Yeah. It was about... Oh, got it. I'm saying it right now. You're asking the wrong question. Malpass. Your premise one... Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
This is... Your premise one is formulated because you're asking the wrong question. Remember also when I had Dr. Gerby on, and he was talking about Porphyry, the Phoenician, having a conversation with some bishop. And it was almost the same question. The question's wrong. The question isn't about what is God, but who is Lord. So it's the question, and we were talking about this when we were going over Hubert Dreyfus and his critique of AI and all the Daniel Dennett and all the goofs in MIT working on this stuff. The question's wrong. Wittgenstein is really good at this too. It's the wrong question. I mean, how many times do we see this? So we had somebody here earlier, right? You're asking the wrong question about, does God have to be personal? The question is accidentalism possible? Could you affirm accidentalism if accidentalism that? So I think we need to lean into that more. That was kind of something that also with the guys who were reviewing the debate, it's the wrong question. And in which sense, I could say, I don't find your questions, and we'll have the next callers, hopefully this won't apply to you. I don't find your question philosophically interesting and worth my time answering. It's the wrong question. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, I remember now.
And that's a way to dismiss in a good rhetorical way too. Developing rhetoric. Your questions are incorrect. You're not. Oh, I remember how all this came together. Man, my ADD brain. We were gonna watch my former professor, Father Dr. Brendan Purcell, and he was arguing against Peter Singer about the atheists. He's like, "Yeah, I can't do his accent, because I wonder where he's from, what part of Ireland, but do you see the question's wrong? It's the wrong question. The question isn't, and he was going through that. And part of that, he was the one that introduced me to Bernard Lonergan, and I wrote my PhD thesis on Bernard Lonergan, and it's all about insight. And I get the insight is to actually ask. Man begins with a questioning spirit. Aristotle says, all men desire to know. It's the question and formulating the question correctly that gives you the right answer. If you don't ask the right questions, you don't get answers. And so many of us for so long have just kind of entertained this idea that, well, you just have to answer the question the way somebody puts it to you. I'm like, I don't have to do a gosh dang thing, first of all. But it doesn't get in anything. Everybody's focusing on is just kind of, you remember when our teachers in grade school would be like, there's no such thing as a dumb question. It's like, I tell my students, I'm like, there's all kinds of dumb questions. I deal with them all the time. I don't know why, I know the grade school teachers are trying to get us just, talk and ask questions. And so they needed to tell us a noble lie. There's no such thing as a dumb question, right? And it's like, but there are. You can see the kid in the back, but there are. There's lots of them. It's all about how you frame the question. Yeah. Speaking of questions, other questions before we go to the next. We've got 2 people in line that have been waiting. All right. I will go to the next. Welcome, baby. Unmute. I'm messing, but go ahead, unmute.
Oh, sir.
Hey, welcome to the very first. Yeah, welcome to space, man. They said space was fake and gray, but we are here in space right now.
Well, good evening, Father Deacon. Wonderful to see you and you up again. And yeah, for sure. And yeah, different question. Whether
Yeah.
you're talking about this, the subject that you were just on, gave me another question. What is the right question? And the way you phrase it is not what is God, but who is Lord. And is that you said that was from a video that I could go watch?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the. I never heard that before, and Dr. Garby, when I was interviewing him, brought that up. That Porphyry the Phoenician. Yeah, I was interviewing him on his paper, and he brought that up. Let me see. It should be in the Anamnesis podcast series here, and got it. I'm gonna put it
Layout.
in the chat for all you guys. Yeah. But that blew my mind. I was like, wow, that's.
Yeah, for sure. Want to listen more on that. But my initial question was about what I'm trying to explain eschatological universalism to someone and how that transcendentally ends up making the possibility of like the preconditions for knowledge impossible. It requires a fundamental change, like it entails a fundamental change in the essence of God. I'm not exactly sure how to like phrase it the correct way in order to make it into a good argument. If you get like the direction that I'm going there.
So you have an intuition that there. By the way, I do my philosophy this way. I start with a general intuition. I think there's something here that's worth exploring, or I think that there's something about what this guy's saying that's bad, but I don't have all the details. But the intuition kind of gives me a thumbs up, like I should invest some time in it. So if I get this correct, you have an intuition that there's something here, possibly worth exploring, that universalism would entail something about God that isn't good, and that whatever that aspect is that you could work out in the details would in fact make knowledge impossible, or at least obtaining the necessary conditions of knowledge impossible. Is that correct? Something like that?
Correct.
Yeah, there might be some. I mean, I'd have to think about that some more. I have made arguments to people that I flipped it on them. So typically what a motivating factor for universalists, those who want the kind of David Bentley Hart version of apostasis, is compassion. I don't want that, right? And we all have that. Nobody wants to see people be, eternally in torment. And so what they then do is, well, my vision of God wouldn't allow that. See, God's omnipotent, omnibenevolent, so he could fix that. Because I don't want to worship a God who would allow people to be tormented forever. That's typically the motivation. And I tried something interesting that's that, well, I don't want to worship a God the God of the Universalist. I think it's an evil God and not one worthy of worship. So how about that? And then just like the mouths drop. They don't know how to. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. I think that what it would take for God to actually do that would actually be an evil. And it's not my God, right? So as bad as that may be, what God would have to do to overcome that bad would actually be an evil. And my God doesn't have that in him. That's something kind of similar to what you're saying too, but maybe in terms of like, well, if God could do something like that, then he really doesn't kind of fulfill the necessary conditions for the possibility of knowledge. And therefore, a universalist God is a defeater. Something like that. I'm just thinking out loud, but...
That's also another angle that, I think I've heard someone go into that before. And initially, how I was thinking about it, the way that I asked you was that the change, or it would require something, for universalism to be true, it would require the blur, something about like there not being a distinction in the final state between good and wickedness, and removing that distinction fundamentally would require a change in how God's justice works, and which the justice of God would be an unchanging factor in its essence. Now, or am I kind of thinking about it wrong?
No, I think there's something intuitively. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to get this spelled out and more details. I started to have an argument with one of the theology professors. I want to see if he might have only been there for a year appointment, but he is a total like originist and and we started to get into it in his like. I love just stopping by the theology department opposite. It'd be like, you want to have an argument? So I actually stopped in last semester, and one's a Protestant and the other's a Roman Catholic. I just started off the argument. I'm like, what's it going to take? Oh, what's it going to take to get you to convert Orthodox? I thought that was just a great conversation starter with professors of theology. And I forget how it went in, but I ended up telling the story about one of my favorite saints is Saint Spiridon, who was not educated. I mean, by our standards, maybe a third grade education, ignorant kind of peasant farmer. But his wisdom came not from his own mind and education, or lack thereof, but from God, through that he was acquiring virtues. And he was a pivotal person, an essential person in refuting the Arians during the First Ecumenical Council. And you may know the story of the brick, the miracle that starts turning to fire and then water. Like, and he's doing this miracle in front of everybody. He's like, well, the Trinity's like this. And he actually won over a lot of people because it was like, it's God speaking. So I told this story, and I can see they're all like, you know, they're skeptical. And I said, now what if I did that? Like, would that be enough to convince you that orthodoxy were true? And they were like, no. Basically, they said I've already made up my mind. I would think it's cool, but I'm like, isn't that interesting? The questions that we ask are really interesting, aren't they? So I told that story, and I was asking a question to get behind the question. And they gave me the exact answer that I not wanted, but in the direction and the area that I'm like, there's nothing you could do or show me. You know, it reminds me of the story like of Lazarus and the rich man. If you just tell him, my brother, it's like, we sent the prophet. Like, what if somebody raises from the, like, they're still not going to believe. So anyways, I just kind of found that interesting. But what is this guy's Herod College? Oh, I'm sorry, I dropped my phone. Forgive me for the noise. Carroll College Theology Faculty. Cameron. Not Cameron Bertuzzi, but anyways, you just made me think about I don't even see him on here. He must be made me think about like going in and actually trying these arguments out on. But I think something, like you said, intuitively something's there. All right. Any other questions?
I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you, Father Deacon. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, God bless you, man. Thanks for calling in. All right. Dale. All right, Dale, you're on. Hey, welcome, buddy. How many people do we have in here, by the way? I didn't advertise the space on Twitter, Face Lord book. Face Lord. So we could have got more, but we were just kind of trying this out. Anyways.
Don't worry about it, man. Honestly, some of the best spaces are the ones with 20 people or less, and we're right at that threshold.
Yeah, man. Welcome to space.
Oh, goodness. I'm hoping it's going to be better than the last one I was in a few minutes ago.
Oh, well, yeah. Of course, MySpace are the best. But, all right, what is going on in the chat here? Can you guys hear in the chat all right? All right, anyways, go ahead, Dale. First time caller, long time listener.
Close personal friend.
Yeah.
By the way, someone who's met the guy, I can personally vouch that Father Deacon is one of the nicest people I've ever met. He has excellent taste in beer, which I'm no connoisseur of, but I know a good one when I taste it. And he gifted my wife some myrrh from the Relics of a Saint during a time of great spiritual difficulty that was extremely helpful, along with his prayers and Father Russell's. So,
Yeah, thank you, brother.
in case any of you lurkers are wondering.
I'm glad you brought that. You know, something I just forget. I'm glad you brought up that story. I'm very loud, but I'll talk slowly and quietly. It's because the speaker, Dale's going through the phone, and I'm actually in the room. So it's just, we tried to hook the Bluetooth up through the speaker. That didn't work. So what can I do? What can I say? This is what you got. There's no way to fix it. And I've got it turned up as high as can. Anyways, yeah, go ahead, Dale.
Oh, no worries, man. Yeah, I was just saying, I still remember the time that you gave us the myrrh from the Relics of that saint that ended up helping my wife when we first met you.
Yeah, I still have some of the. Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? And you never know to.
Absolutely.
I had used that with somebody else too. I told them to hold it in their hand. They're going through a crisis, and I prayed to the Mother of their God, like help them. It's in your hands, and it's interesting to see that it doesn't always happen immediately. That I can actually see the blessings years later. I'm like, so that should kind of teach us too that when the saints are helping us and God's helping us, it's not always going to look the way that we want it when we want it, but it's always the best. Like, that's what I've always noticed is it's exactly the best way it could have went. That's the, even allowing us to go through the bad things. I'm like, it's all kairotic. Right timing is the Greek word. God's timing is always the right timing in the right way, in the right proportion. And the longer you kind of work with God and the saints and just through people's struggles, you start to see that, like, especially over time, you're like, there, yep, it's always, and that's the level of trust that you just learned how God works. And then you trust him. When you know somebody and how they work, you trust them. You're like, I don't know what the game plan is here with my friend, but I trust him, right? And God and the saints are like that. Man, we have all the audio autists. You guys, I'm gonna send Dale to go get you. People are like, the audio, I can't hear him. Like, you can't hear him? All right. Thanks, brother. Good to, let me get, Jonathan is up next. Welcome, Jonathan. God bless you this evening.
God bless you, Father. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So I was curious if I could follow up with the question from earlier about discernment.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand the idea of reaching out for others, trying to get alternative perspectives on things. And at the same time, I feel that's kind of like you're pulling those experiences into your subjective bubble and still places yourself in the role of evaluator, because that subjective experience of talking to this person hypothetically could be just a demonic manifestation saying, yeah, I'm totally justified in feeling upset about these comments in the Twitter space or something. So because we're never outside of the system of ourselves, we can never act as like a referent to know what is valid or invalid.
Well, I don't think it's just simply getting an alternative perspective. There's a lot more involved in that. Like I said, when you get the right sort of people, and let's say, I mean, the first thing is, I think, to identify biases and that there's the possibility of, and then you figure out, okay, well, how do I get around that? So that's the right kind of question. Well, I need people that wouldn't just confirm my own bias, right? So then you got to think, well, have I ever had experience where somebody, it's like, they told me exactly what I didn't want to hear, right? And are they the type of person that is what I would consider wise or something like that? Okay. Now, if you just use that person, again, you're still interpreting through your subjective experience. However, like I said, so what happens if you talk to multiple people that are like that? So they're not conspiring, they don't know each other, and they all say the same thing. Like, that's why I was saying there's something like the doctrine of chance. Like, well, what are the odds that these people who don't know each other are all saying the same thing? And they're the sort of person that would tell me if they wouldn't just be confirmation bias people. Well, eventually that gets down to nil. Now, so the question really is, I think you're saying, how could we ever be for sure on this? Probably not. This comes up with a lot of different stuff. This is in epistemology what's called the strong theory of knowledge, the strong version, which is Cartesian. Nobody believes this anymore because it's just so stringent that you wouldn't know anything. And basically, if you had a JTB, a justified true belief condition, so obviously to know something you have to believe it. It has to be true, and you have to have justification for that. So the question then with the kind of Cartesian model is that the justification has to be indubitable. In other words, like 100%, like there's no, like, it passes all doubts. There's no way that you could doubt it. Well, if that's what is required to get knowledge, you wouldn't know anything. Because, yes, we can formulate doubts, logical doubts about almost anything. So then epistemologists and most everybody have moved to a weaker version. Well, it doesn't need to be indubitable. I don't have to remove every possible doubt that I could come up with. I just need to have sufficient justification. I always use, I don't know why I pick on the gas station next door, but I feel that it's intuitively, most people would say, he knows that there's a gas station next door. It's a Conoco, or I think. And somebody says, but how do you know? I mean, what if, like, have you ever gone and, like, what if it's just actually a facade, like, set up, and, like, inside's a bunch of, like, you know, people doing weird stuff that none of it has to do with gas station. It's like, I don't actually know. Like, it's a doubt that I can't actually rule out. Well, how do you know that it's, like, what if they give you gas, but the next day it's not gas? Or what if it disappears every time you go away, and it's only there when you look at it, right? Be like, okay, I guess it's logically possible. But if I have good enough reasons to believe, it doesn't have to be indubitable. I have to remove every possible doubt. If I have good enough reasons, and there really is a gas station there, it's true, then that's knowledge. So I think we have something similar with the case with you, that how can you ever know something if you're like, well, if you assume this kind of Cartesian strong version, then no, like you're bringing up all these doubts. Well, how do it's like, but then you wouldn't know anything. So the question then is, do I have good enough reasons? Are these good enough reasons that I mentioned? Is it possible that they're all conspiring together? And yeah, but like, I have enough reasons to be justified in believing something. And if it's actually true, then I'm not deceived. I'm justified and I have a true belief. I think that's the best way to kind of take it. And I've given some kind of ways to do this. But the other thing, too, to get out of this, why I think it's really important, too, is virtue epistemology. That the only way, one of the important way, I want to say the only way, of getting out of this would be, of self-deception, is virtue. The virtuous man requires the virtues, not by any formula or something like that, is able to see when he's being deceived and when he's not. And when something's true and when it's not. And that's really what we kind of hold to. And that's why, because I haven't acquired all the virtues, I can identify, and that's kind of interesting too, is that almost everybody can, unless you're engaged in like serious vice, almost all can look and be like, that's a virtuous person. And they don't kind of logically deduce these things. There's something about the being of the person that it's like, the person has virtues. Now, of course, people can always be deceived about that. But generally, like, you can pick up on that. And so, when we go to the wise and virtuous person, to help us through, like, that's the best way. So you're like any epistemological thing, like, look, if your concerns are actually really concerns, then there's nothing we can, like, there's no hope whatsoever about anything in life. There's no way. It's sort of like, it's like simulation there. It's all simulation. Even your conclusion that's a simulation, it just becomes an absurd world. Or there's another way. There's a way out. And the way out to virtue, the way out is, you know, not this Cartesian kind of indubitability or something like that, but like, I have good enough reasons. That's, you know, that's sufficient. Does that help?
Yes, but can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So, I agree with you. I am an Orthodox Christian. I can identify probably things that we agree upon as being virtues. I work in the field of therapy, so I'm like concerned about people who are far from the Orthodox worldview.
Yeah.
So, when people, a worldly person's virtue, very different than ours. So they're going to believe certain things are good and valuable in comparison to us.
Yeah.
If they're allowed for their version of virtues to guide them, probably going to drift them further away from the truth.
That's why I said
how a person in that state be able to even discern what is actually virtuous or not?
They can't. That's why I said generally speaking, but when you add in other ideas and vices, no, they won't be able to see. They won't be able to see who the virtuous person is, and everything's inverted.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right about that.
So then how does one get out of that trap when you're in that kind of state?
Well, that's conversion, and I actually don't know. It's mysterious. There's no formula. And that's the thing about virtue ethics, too, is it's totally different from the other ethics. There is no step-by-step. It's like what the virtuous person does. I don't know, ask the virtuous person. Like Aristotle's like, you want to know the answer? Ask the virtuous person. So you're asking somebody, it's like, I don't know. That's why I asked the virtuous person. The way out is virtue, though. And you have to have something like Plato's allegory of the cave, where somebody comes down who's a sort of kind of savior that has the virtues to pull somebody out of the darkness. I don't know why some people respond and some other people don't. I think it requires, you know, one of the people that introduced me to Paul Jackson taught, like when I was 18, and back in 1996 said something really important that's always stuck with me. Now, my pagan name is Eric, so that all you know. I know my clerical name is Father Deacon Ananias, but the name I was born with is Eric with a K. And they said, Eric, no one will listen to you if they don't think that you love them and care about them. And I'm like, isn't that the truth? That really stuck with me. So you can't walk somebody out of vice in the cave and darkness and a world that's upside down unless you spend time with and they believe. They feel that you actually love them and care. And so in therapy, you know, I talked about this too, that's where good therapy is done. And sometimes too, as I said, maybe the person is going through some sort of trauma or some problem and they can't cry yet. The empathetic therapist says, I'm in a position I can cry for you. Those are kind of ways out of, but at the same time, you see this like with therapy with addicts too. Like the same form, the same thing will work with one person and not the other. A person, because they have free will, can always be like, I don't want it. I don't want the help, and everything you're saying is wrong, and I'd rather be tormented than to hang around with you and feel your love. This was a vision of hell.
Yeah.
So there is no kind of easy answer. I would say with the self-deception, though, I think it's through experience too. I would say reflect on times that you identify and when you deceived yourself and when you came out of it, and start to be like, what happened? Like, how did I notice that? What did I do? I tend to introspect a lot. I'm very introspective. And so I'm always kind of thinking about my mistakes. I'm like, what went wrong? Like, how did that happen? How did I actually believe this was actually really true? How did I deceive myself? And how do I get the right? I think about those things. I think the more you kind of experience that, the more you'll start seeing the kind of patterns. Be like, that's how I got it. This is how I don't fall for it again, or don't deceive myself. And it may be different for each person. I can give a general kind of outline sketch like we did. Generally, that kind of works, but everybody's different. It's really hard, actually, to. I know it's possible because the other side would just be radical global skeptic, and I know that's not possible. So I'm like, well, there is a possibility. There is a way to transcend your kind of subjective kind of limitations and self-deception and stuff like that. So let's look and see where that's worked. And anyways, I hope that... Great question, though. That's an excellent, really profound and deep.
Thank you for the help. Appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless. All right, let's see. Got another... Christian Logos, you're on. Welcome. God bless you this evening.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Let me put it up on the... All right. We can hear you.
Perfect. So this is kind of an interesting kind of question, kind of just looking for kind of your insight on it as well. I wrote a paper on it a couple months back, so it's a little foggy, but I was researching tag for probably 2 or 3 years, through Jay and you guys for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I stumbled upon 2 fallacies that I tried kind of weaving into the tag argument, and it seemed to me to necessitate on the opponent's side an essence energy distinction. And the 2 fallacies were the reification fallacy and the anthropomorphic fallacy. And when you combine those 2 fallacies, and this is where I'd like your insight, when you combine these 2 fallacies, because reification fallacy critiques treating abstract concepts as if they have causal relations to this world. So that would critique something like maybe ADS or a Platonic, maybe Islamic or Jewish type of gods, you know what I mean?
And Platonism and Neoplatonism too.
And Neoplatonism, of course. Yeah. Whereas the anthropomorphic fallacy, I'm sure you know what that is, right? Reading human categories or human relations into God too extremely. And so I was dabbling around with that, and I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts would be on incorporating those 2 fallacies along in with the argument that is normally brought about with tag.
Man, that's really good. I mean, that's a total different approach than... So what you could do... So something like the objection can go like 3 or 4 different ways.
Yes. And it does get more complicated there too, because obviously there's maybe even a tie-in to necessitating a balance between unity and multiplicity with that as well, because you can't have a reified abstract concept that's too unified in itself, like AKA the Platonic one or monad, that doesn't give a justification for the relations within multiplicity of creation. And you also can't read in too much the created multiplicity into that type of God. And so I was dabbling with it, and I just noticed how many different ways that you could actually apply this to various different systems, where there's almost no way to avoid those two fallacies simultaneously without an essence-energy distinction.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could do that.
That's great. Yeah. So everybody in the chat, if you don't know what's going on, the argument would be, so you reject Tag, the Orthodox God.
Yeah.
You have 4 ways to go. I'm just saying number, like maybe it's like, let's explore them. You have this option that collapses into kind of a monad. You have this that, right, so it emphasizes, and you can go through the problems with that. Then there's an emphasis on the multiplicity, or you can go into accidentalism, blah, blah, blah. You'd go, all of those could be shown to be false or self-refuting, make knowledge impossible, therefore, something like that, right? Therefore,
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and the other thing, too, is that you notice, like, a lot with your debates, Jay's debates as well, is especially, like, Tag, obliterates any type of materialistic or autonomous epistemic system, obviously. And when you get into the theonomous systems, most of the arguments either tend to go over people's heads, or the question always comes up every time, why a Trinity, or why the Orthodox God? Like, why can't we just plug in, play anything? And this is where I was trying to cut through a lot of that fluff in that argument, was like, look, if you just have these two fallacies, and they're really logical fallacies, anyone can look them up, you can't have a system that's making logically fallacious moves. Therefore, it necessitates an essence-energy distinction to avoid both these fallacies simultaneously. Does your system have an essence-energy distinction? Oh, well, no. Well, there you go. How do you avoid those two fallacies?
Yeah, that's a good... So I think there's probably multiple ways to show... I've always said if the system doesn't have essence energies, or doesn't have the energies...
Yes.
It's going to be defeated for the possibility of knowledge. I've typically shown that one way, so what you're showing is there could be another way to actually show that. Because only Orthodox... Somebody brought up in the chat, too, why can't it work for the Coptics? It's like, well, the Coptics don't have a single... or the Orientals, there really is no dogma of the energies. It's like, some people believe it, some people get like, so how is that going to work? Like, so your whole faith is supposed to have these essential components, and like, they're basically, well, it's not really essential because some are allowed to have it and others reject, like, then you don't have a unified faith or paradigm, and that's what we're actually talking about.
And with the Coptic faith, is that where they confuse, or Christ only has one nature? Is that
after the union from the two natures, they say he only has one nature.
Right.
And then we've brought up, the necessity of the energies, and they're split. Like, some Orientals and Coptics say, well, yeah, I believe in it. Others don't. I'm like, well, isn't that a problem?
Yeah, well, that's a massive problem, too, because if you're collapsing Christ's two nature, basically they're taking the term hypostasis out of the question and subbing it in for nature. But
well, that's a problem, too, but what I'm saying is, isn't it a problem if the true faith is divided on one of the essential components about... So, yeah, I know you believe it, but, like, if we're talking about... If this is a paradigm argument, your paradigm... it seems to be optional.
Right, and so that's a pretty significant problem. And then I don't know how you actually would sift which energy it applies to what mode of the nature if they're collapsed into a single nature. How do the energies actually differentiate themselves then at that point?
Yeah, maybe they say, like, some of these crazy wacko internet Orthodox... God only has one energy. I don't know.
Right, yeah. No,
it's like, well, yeah, he has one energy proper to his nature, but, like, he has multiple... Maybe they bring in Latin. It's the Latinizers. Let's just call them
Yeah.
for what they are.
Yeah.
They want to, for some reason, be like, it'd be awesome if we could like pick a heretical sect and like bring in and merge with Orthodoxy. Yeah, what a great idea! Well, look, we're the same.
Yeah, right.
What the heck?
Yeah, no, I get that too. And then I did have one more follow up, unless you had anything else to add to
No.
to that. So that was kind of a previous endeavor I was looking down, and the last endeavor I've been researching now for like the past 9 or 10 months was, and I have to be cautious, and hopefully you'll understand the subtleties I'm speaking with here, because I'm not trying to imply anything heretical here, but it's I'm noticing as I read, especially in St. Athanasius, I was reading through his complete works, that's when I noticed it, and then I started following it, and then it really became apparent to me in St. Maximus. But a potential conceptual, and I emphasize conceptual, distinction between essence and nature. Now, obviously, those are signified as interchangeable, and oftentimes the fathers do use them interchangeably, and oftentimes they don't, or oftentimes they'll deliberately separate them when speaking about God, saying, oh, his essence and his nature. And I was wondering if you've ever noticed something like that, what you had thought about between those two, those two concepts.
Yeah, so it's similar to like when we see the word spirit used in scripture in the fall. Sometimes it refers to soul.
Right.
But then other times St. Paul says soul and spirit. Well, obviously they can't mean the same thing there, because you'd just be like saying soul and soul.
Right.
And so there's different and I've noticed the same thing with ousia, essence and nature. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. Sometimes one kind of refers to the kind of universal versus the kind of concrete. So yeah, I have actually.
So my thought process on it, and you feel free to kick me off at any time. I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time, but my thought process on it was, it almost appeared to me as if when they do separate them, and I'll explain why I think maybe they do use them interchangeably as well, because essence and nature applied to God basically are going to be the same answer to both of those questions, right? Because in God, his nature is infinite and his essence is unknowable, so they kind of collapse into apophaticism together. But when St. Maximus starts to take the essence, created essences and natures, and apply them into creation, there seems to be this more inherent conceptual distinction. And at least my interpretation was, he tends to answer different ontological questions with them. He tends to answer like essence as what something is in itself, kind of considered without relation, like only what it is as God intended it to become in all times and places. And the nature, how something is, how it actually relates. So the little subtlety there is what something is in itself versus how something is in relation. And I started playing around with that, and that's when it started to get interesting. And if you did think about, if you asked those two ontological questions about God, I could see why the answers would both be unknowable, right? Because if we asked what God is substantially or essentially, it's unknowable. And also if we asked how God is, or what power or capacity he possesses for relations, it's also infinite. So they're both absolutely apophatic. And so I see where they collapse into similarity, in when we're speaking about God. But then I noticed this subtle distinction in St. Maximus' metaphysic as he starts to apply them to creation. And I don't know what your thoughts on that would be, but
I'll have to think about it some more. So you're saying Fusus can emphasize a kind of mode, I think, is what I...
It would be similar to mode. Obviously, you have tropos,
right? Which is kind of
Well, yeah, I'm not saying the phusus is tropos. I'm saying phusus brings along with it. Obviously, it refers to the essence, but the mode in which the essence exists. So, in terms of Christological debates, this is what's actually being argued: is the nature existing. It's a confusion between nature and person because the way that phusus exists in a concretized way is person, according to...
Right.
Whereas when you talk about essence, it doesn't bring along those kind of connotations. Is that...
No, and I think I saw it, maybe it was in St. John Damascus' Fountain of Knowledge, but and I think St. Maximus explicitly said this, I can't remember, but the essence is the principle of the nature. You know, it's like they entail themselves. Like, you can't separate them, which is why I refer to them as conceptual. They point to the same reality, but they're asking slightly different ontological questions about that reality, aka the hypothesis.
I think you're right. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
like,
I picked up on that.
As I started to read through that, it made more sense to me when St. John of Damascus speaks of the two essences in Christ, like his human essence and his divine essence, and how they would be the principles of his two natures. Because at first that made no sense to me. It was like he brought that up, and I was like, well, I thought Christ only has one essence with the Trinity, right? And then I was like, that means there has to be some sort of different understanding here of essence, and that led me down this whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think because this question's come up before too, and yeah, I would probably say that ousia is kind of more abstract. And yeah, phusus tends to, you know, be kind of more specific and bring kind of connotations, the mode in which an essence exists.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah. Good question.
I tend to think of it as like the nature is like the dynamic capacity by which a hypothesis can energize. It's like the limits to what a thing can do, like how it can relate. And then by knowing the nature through the energies, we can assume its essence. We won't know those essences in themselves, like St. Maximus says, within even creation, we won't know the essences of things. But we can assume that it does possess whatever that nature is in itself from God, right? So it's like through energy, we can assume the general nature or capacity of a being, and by that general capacity, we can assume that it possesses the essential essence of whatever that is, you know?
Yeah. Good. Excellent, man. I mean, you thought through this really well. Like, that's exactly what I would say, too.
Okay, cool. And I just wanted to double check with it because sometimes you study on your own and you go down a rabbit hole and you're way off track, but...
Yeah, which relates to the previous caller. Like, how do I know? Like, you reach out. But, I mean, it's a really mysterious question, too. Like, I don't know kind of formulaically, like, how I get myself out of self-this, like, I generally kind of know. I'm like, yeah, it's like that. I reach out, like, I'm constantly, like, I'm trying to get as much information, get out of my subjectivity as possible.
Right.
But it's really hard to say, like, yeah, but how exactly was it done? I'm like, I don't know.
Right. And this actually brings up one thing, and I'll be quick, we can go on to the next caller, but I was thinking about the levels of epistemic claims, right? And, you have a level 1 claim, which is a basic belief. Level 2 is basic belief with a reason. Level 3 is basic belief with a reason and a universal justifying those reasons. And then I was thinking, like, could there be a level 4, right? Because normally it stops there, and I thought, like, maybe the saints, right? Like, because then they kind of bypass all of that and have direct experiential knowledge of God. And I'm wondering if that is kind of the answer to that question in some way. It's like, not saying we all have to become saints, but saying that that's how we get out of the subjectivity, is having, this...
Absolutely. Yeah, well, certainly.
Yeah, this experiential, actual otherness to us that we find in God, right?
And that's why I said, too, it's virtue epistemology. So theosis is acquiring all the spiritual virtues. So it's,
Right.
it's becoming united with God as much as possible, so that you get kind of divine eyes, like you see things in an objective way. So there's definitely a link there.
Well, and it's interesting, too, that humility becomes such a significant aspect to the virtue epistemology, because in some way, humility is the denial of one's will, which is the denial of autonomy. So it is kind of the only way to get out of, I think, practically an autonomous epistemic position or subjectivity, is to have humility, right? You know, humility that gets you away from your self-will. And then that gets you into aligning with God's will, which is something outside of yourself.
Yeah. All right, who else do we have? Wow, we have a bunch of... I'm going to go to people I haven't... I have Dale in here, but I have two other people I haven't called on. You guys are wearing... I'm starting to wind. I got to teach early in the morning, so we'll take Sapphire and JR. How about that?
Cool, thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, God bless you, man. All right, let's go to Sapphire. Welcome, Sapphire. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, welcome.
Hello. I don't want to take too much of your time, but
Yeah, no problem.
I was curious what like to the metaphysics of orthodoxy, like what if idealism is at all an acceptable view for Orthodox Christians to hold to?
No. Yeah, let's see. Well, I think part of the problem is it collapses. It makes it really difficult, if not impossible. It collapses the distinction between. I mean, if everything is kind of an idea and actually isn't distinct materially from God's ideas, then it kind of collapses into kind of a monism and pantheism. And so I think it's really important that, I mean, it seems too also the way the fathers speak and Genesis, there really is a distinction between God's ideas and matter, that they're substantially, qualitatively, etc., distinct. Now, if all you mean by idealism, in him we move, live, and have our being, and it's what like St. Maximus says, God's thought wills. So there are logoi on a thought, an infinite amount of them, that he doesn't all will. He wills to create through his divine uncreated logoi certain things. So there's a logoi of a tree, of all the things that you can say, and they're not separated, that they're sustaining their being within God's energies or logoi. If that's what you mean, that's fine. But there really is a distinction. Like, one is the cause sustaining it, right? It's the idea and stuff like that. It's immaterial, but material is not immaterial, right, by definition. And so I think, for me, kind of like Berkeleyan or other forms of idealism, what they're really going to say is that material is not actually material. It's just an idea of matter. Now, we can't say that. So it just depends what you mean by that, I guess. But I think I gave the ways that it could be acceptable. If you just mean everything has its being and is sustained through God's ideas, and God's ideas are immanent in nature, sustaining them, that's fine. Just to say that like matter is actually really distinct from those ideas. Good question, though. All right, moving on. We have... Hey, JR. JR, isn't that from the TV series Dallas? Ad speaker. Dallas from JR. I mean, JR from Dallas. My brain just.
Larry Hagman.
Yes, amen. All right.
Real quick, I was reading something, and I wanted to understand this further. Is Tertullian and Origen, and a lot of the early, the early commentators,
Mm-hmm. What
do
about?
they believe that Plato and the pre-Socratics had read the Old Testament, and that's where they got their morals and virtue from?
I've never heard that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know that many, not just Tertullian and Origen, in the church talked about the pagan virtues. But I hadn't heard anybody say, "Oh, it's because they came in contact with the Old Testament." They seem to be keenly aware and open to natural revelation, and they, without supernatural revelation, of being part of the community. And this is the way that the fathers taught.
That's how Tertullian develops natural law kind of stuff.
Yeah, that they, and there is something admirable and unique about the ancient Greeks, that it's they really do seem to be really open and dedicated to kind of truth and the virtues and the divine as well. And so, although they can be really wrong about stuff, they, in the church's eyes, kind of hold a high place in history, because it's like, that's what a man outside of faith, outside of Jerusalem, basically, which is the conference we're going to give Athens and Jerusalem, which is the famous Tertullian, what does Athens do with Jerusalem?
The one where we're going to get tickets to fly to Athens and Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's right. I love that joke. That's what's so admirable. Like, and the other thing too, they didn't separate philosophy in the pursuit of truth from virtue. And so it is quite remarkable. I'm always like super impressed how like deep and far the pre-Socratics got on issues, and even with science, without empirical science and the scientific method. Some of the deep principles they got, about being and stuff like this, let alone virtue. So, but I don't think it's necessarily because they ran into that would be less remarkable to me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because they were reading the Old Testament. I'd be like, well, duh. But the fact that somebody through natural revelation itself, that I'm like, could get to those levels, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like pseudo Dionysius.
What in what way?
Just in the way of like the spirit, similar in the way that pseudo Dionysius kind of comes to the spiritual conclusions.
Well, he was a saint. I mean, I call him Dionysius, Saint Dionysius, because I don't think he's real, but I know, I get.
I understand that, but it's the way there's no exposition of old like it's prior to the. What am I trying to say? It's like in the early church period.
Oh, to get that far, yeah, exactly. No, yeah.
To get that far ahead, like to
before like all the other theologians come, yeah. Which is one reason why the secularists academics were like, well, obviously that couldn't be. He must be later.
Exactly.
Because that would refute our paradigm. That would mean there's something miraculous about.
I was actually reading it in Helicon, because he was saying that don't know. Maybe I'll take a photo of it. I don't have a direct connection to you, but I can send it to Jay or something.
Yeah.
You could see the passage that I'm referring to or something.
Thank you, dear brother. I'm so sorry. Forgive me for yawning. That's really rude.
I know I'm putting you to sleep. I get it.
Actually, your question was awesome. Let me get Dale. I'll get you on real quick. Thanks, JR, so much. And thank everybody. And let me get Dale on real quick. And then I know we have one super chat to read. And if anybody else wants to send any super chats in for me to read before we depart. Because I got Matlock's on. No, Dallas and Matlock and then Murder, She Wrote. I got to watch that before I go to bed. And I got to get my Ensure, Matlock. What's the other boomer old timer? My dentures and need to be soaking. You know there's going to be a point in time where you're going to have to deal with the deacon that's going to be like that. So I'm just trying to prep you that for that time where you're like, I used to remember when he had a good mind and good teeth and eyes. Now, let me tell you a joke. Speaking about eyes and ears and so, father had his son, he didn't have any ears. And his son was particularly sensitive about this issue. He didn't like people pointing that out, or he was a bit sore and sensitive about the fact that he was earless. Father, being the father of his son, knew this. And he was having some guests over for dinner, and he kind of had to prep the guests, like, look, a little Johnny, here you see, he doesn't have any ears. Now, that's not a big deal, but my son, little Johnny, he's a bit sensitive about it, so I just, don't say anything about it or, point out that he doesn't have any ears. And, and we'll be okay. And so all the people agree with this, and of course everybody's now a bit nervous and acting awkward at the dinner table with all the dinner guests. One guy says, well, gosh dang it, Johnny, you sure got some nice teeth there, Johnny. They sure are shiny. And the next person's like, well, Johnny, just your hair is just that's some real nice hair there, Johnny. Nice color and nice you get a haircut, Johnny? And everybody's kind of going around and add something, anything to not talk about the missing ears. Finally we get to the last guy, and he starts saying, now Johnny, you got some real nice eyes there, real pretty eyes. Sure you can see 20/20 vision, Johnny. Johnny, you have such good eyes there. You should really take care of those eyes, because if you don't, and you have to get glasses, you ain't gonna have anything to hang them off of. Wonk wonk wonk. Oh, come on. All right, Dale, you're up.
Unfortunately, I can't. The baby is losing his poop. But, he just calmed down.
All
He
right.
is no longer losing his poop. Goodness. So, actually, it was interesting earlier that the Miaphysites came up. And earlier today, somebody was asking, what's the difference between one Monophysite and another?
Is this a setup for a joke?
What's that?
Sounds like it's a setup for a joke. Guy walks in and says, what's the
I
difference
wish.
between a...
I wish, but no. There's a young lady who I guess had been inquiring, and some of that had been at canonical parishes, and her Greek Orthodox spiritual father, so-called, told her it would be okay for her to be baptized and regularly attend at a Coptic church that was closer to home, even though she had been going at times to a Greek church that was a bit further away. I don't know how much further. Anyways, this caused some controversy for good reason, and somebody was asking her, well, why Coptic? And she said, oh, it's okay, we're all Orthodox. And he was like, well, no, you're not. You guys are Monophysites.
Yeah.
To which she said, no, we're not. We're Miaphysites.
Yeah.
And anyways, I was a little rusty on it, so I didn't get like overly technical. But
Tomato.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fair for them not to be wanting to get lumped in with the Eutychians, who have certainly a more extreme view. But a thought occurred to me while you guys were talking earlier, and I wondered if it maybe had any juice to it, because they talk about one divine and human essence, and I wonder to what extent any of the arguments that they're making for that would have any crossover with the arguments for the Spirit proceeding from the Father and the Son as one principle. You see what I'm saying? Because in both cases it's saying you've got these two things that are clearly distinct in some fashion, that you are saying are one thing, while saying that you're not collapsing them, even though you kind of are. I mean, you are. There's no kind of about it. So I don't know. Do you think there would maybe be...
I don't know. I'll have to think about... I'm kind of thinking no, probably not.
I get that it's like completely different things, but
I have to think about it.
For the sake of spicing things up every now and again, I think it's fun to try to apply, lines of thought from a situation that's different enough to have not had all the same arguments applied before, but similar enough that there might be some interesting crossover. So I didn't know if you had ever given any thought to the...
I haven't. I mean, I know what, and I'll call them Miaphysites, because the Miaphysites to emphasize out of two natures, but one nature after the union. That's basically, and I'm like, fine, whatever. It's still wrong.
Well, yeah, and they insist, but it's not confused or commingled. It's just one fully God and fully human nature, but a fully God nature is not human in any respect, and a fully human nature is not...
Well, I know what their mistake... I know what their mistake is. That's what I'm... So, well, I mean, I'll give them all.
Isn't it a mistake of believing that nature is only fully realized when inhypostatized? Would that be a fair way of putting it?
Concrete. Their mistake is to think that that personhood. So you're sort of correct. The personhood is a concretized essence or nature. So that's why they're saying, well, look, I'm going to concretize like this, right? So their notion of inhypostatized is a particular concrete, right? This. So obviously, if that's what personhood is reducible to, then to have those inhypostatized, right, and concretized into a this would imply two persons. And so they're saying, well, there can't be two persons. So that's out of two natures, they say, when it's concretized or inhypostatized in the person, in the subject Christ, there's no, after the union, there's no two natures anymore, because that would imply that there's two persons. That's basically the error, is their understanding of personhood, which is the same error that actually a lot of people have, but Nestorius. It's just Nestorius goes one way, and they negate Nestorius, but they don't realize, yeah, but the mistake that led to Nestorius was the same mistake that you assumed. So now what you have to say is that same mistake of the confusion of what person actually is the same thing that's happening in the filioque? I don't think so. Maybe it'd be pretty complicated to like kind of work through, but perhaps insofar as this, the Roman Catholic has a wrong notion of personhood. They define the persons of the Trinity by relations of opposition and not by hypostatic. So maybe I'd have to think about it. If it is, it would be through that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. Of course, I'm way more of a philosophical lightweight. I'm more of an armchair philosopher than anything.
But you get it. You get what's being talked about.
You know, I prefer to kind of, you know, have a few technical terms in my back pocket, but not jump straight to them, because most of the people that I'm interacting with, it wouldn't mean anything to anyway. I love the Marine Corps, but brother, there's there's not a lot of thinkers and readers here. There's more than I remember from before, but
hey, by the way, speaking of, I've been going to the VA to talk to the vets. I'm going this Friday morning to share orthodoxy with them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Over here at Fort Harrison.
It's thriving wherever it's available in the Corps, which right now the three bases I'm aware of that have chapels and chaplains for orthodoxy in the Corps would be, I believe, Pendleton, Lejeune, and what's the one on Okinawa? Foster on Okinawa. We don't have anything here local, which is a little bit rough, and we just missed Father Demetrios Harper. He's with one of the reserve units that is coming back from Okinawa right now, but he's going straight to Virginia. He's not going to make a stop here, so gonna miss him.
Miss you, brother. I'm gonna read one super chat, and then I seriously gotta go to bed. Forgive me, guys.
Sure thing.
I hit the wall. All right. And hold on. Holy smokes, man. I want to read a super chat before we head out. Hey, tips, $5. Thank you. As always, FDA, are you posting this stream? I think it's been posted everywhere. But thank you. I posted the stream announcement in Discord, on Facebook, on Twitter, and Discord and Telegram. So, unless I missed something. Anyways, great stream. Got to do more of these. A great experimenting with the X space. It was kind of an experiment. But yeah, going forward too, we can do some of these streams, these impromptu philosophy streams where we pick like a topic. I really didn't get to do that. Of maybe something in ethics or philosophy of mind, just kind of go through, and watch some videos, pull up some texts, and just take questions as they come in on that. I thought originally that was kind of what I was to do, but I'm open to improvising. But I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you who donated to Super Chat. Thank you for your questions. You guys had some really deep and profound questions. And I won't be doing the morning prayers tomorrow, Friday, because I have stuff scheduled in the morning. I teach tomorrow morning. Then, like I told Dale, that I'm heading over to the VA to talk to the veterans about orthodoxy Friday morning. So keep me in your prayers. But until maybe Saturday, I have liturgy Saturday morning. Sunday, I'll be in Great Falls. For those of you in Great Falls, I'm covering for Father Andrew. And perhaps Monday is the next time I'll see you guys. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his grace shine upon you. Until next time, God bless.